Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight live on KMTV. I'm Bartholomew Hall. Here are your top stories on Friday the 6th of June. Fed for free. Locals say new school meals scheme will be vital for struggling families in Medway. Reform off the rails as KCC's Doge team loses 2 members. We'll have what's next for the cost-cutting squad. And swimming to save our seas. Olympic gold medalist Rebecca Adlington takes to Joss Bay to raise funds for a marine charity. But first this evening, an expansion of the government's free school meals scheme across the country and here in Kent means that families on universal credit will be able to access the service. But in Medway, food poverty is still a huge issue, and with the scheme set to roll out by September 2026, is enough being done now to ensure struggling families can give their children the food they need? Finn McDermott has been finding out.
Food poverty is a huge issue in Medway, but a new government scheme hopes to take some of the pressure off of struggling families. The new scheme would mean any children living in a household on universal credit would be entitled to free school meals. The national project is set to be rolled out by September 2026, and according to local politicians, for the 500,000 children expected to benefit from it and their families, the scheme couldn't have come soon enough, especially for the local area.
This is really important. I know from a first-hand experience as a school teacher that many families do struggle with their family finances, and sometimes that does manifest in schools where kids are struggling to eat properly during the day. And of course, that is a major distraction and it stops kids from achieving their potential. So this is not only important for the children to maximise their outcomes at school, but also it gives certainty to parents that they don't need to worry that additional cost on their cost of living every single month.
Now, queues for food banks here in Medway can be particularly long, with many relying on the vital service. So how much could a free school meal help local families? Well, since 2018, children were only eligible for free school meals if their household's income was less than the £7,400 a year limit. But with this removed, the government say it will lift 500,000 children across England completely out of food poverty and save struggling parents £500 every year. The government have also released statistics saying that more than 5,000 children in Gillingham and Rainham will receive the free meals by 2026. So how much did Gillingham need this new scheme?
I think a lot of areas at the moment are struggling. I think the economic crisis everywhere is getting worse and worse. I think it's good that the government have effectively pulled their finger out and ensured that a lot of families that are really struggling are still going to be able to make ends meet to a degree.
Yeah, I think it's good news. I think child poverty is only going up in the country, and after years and years of destitution left by the Tories, it's quite good to see a Labour government enacting a policy you'd expect from them.
Totally agree with it. Obviously, we don't get universal credit. Obviously, only selected families do, but I think it would ease food poverty if they did, yes.
While it's certainly welcomed, some locals were also telling me that those not on universal credit can still struggle to put food on the table. And with food banks struggling to keep up with rising demand, food poverty will remain a big issue in Medway.
I think there's always been a lot of issues. COVID, I think, was a big change for people, that a lot of people started to struggle. The food bank, the numbers went up crazy at one stage, but they're not really letting up. There's still a lot of people still using the food banks. We're lucky in Medway, there's a lot of good services out there that help people with food poverty. So it's good, but the numbers are not letting up. I think the only thing that is letting up a bit is the donations. Donations are not as good as they used to be. So the companies out there, the other charities out there are struggling to get stuff to donate to people.
An extra meal for those who need it most seems to be a welcome change, but many say that more needs to be done, especially on a local level, to ensure everyone can afford to feed their families. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Gillingham.
A father and son accused with the murder of a 4-year-old boy are not expected to stand trial until early next year. Peter Mahon died following a crash between 2 cars in Southfleet last Sunday night. 53-year-old Patrick Mahon and 27-year-old Owen Mahon, both of Hill Rise in Darenth, appeared at Maidstone Crown Court today, where it was revealed the latter, Owen Mahon, was the driver of one of the vehicles at the time of the collision. They're also accused of 2 counts of attempting to wound the other car's passengers, Peter's mother, father and their 1-year-old baby daughter. Both suspects have been remanded in custody. Next tonight, it's been a turbulent week for Reform UK's new Department of Government Efficiency at Kent County Council after two of its members, including the party's chairman, have resigned. What started as a week of photo ops and strongly worded letters demanding council officers hand over information has ended with more questions than answers around the future of the cost-cutting squad. Here's what you might have missed. Reform UK's takeover of Kent County Council promised some bold changes, but this week's chaos has left voters with more questions than answers. On Monday, Reform Chairman Zia Youssef launched the Doge team at County Hall, inspired by Elon Musk's US model, now rocked by Musk's public fallout with Donald Trump. Joined by tech entrepreneur Nathaniel Threed, financier Aaron Banks and council leader Lyndon Kamkaran, they demanded full access to KCC's £2.5 billion budget, threatening gross misconduct for any obstruction.
We have to ensure that taxpayers' money is being spent wisely, efficiently and in a non-wasteful manner. That's the mandate the voters gave us. That's why Reform won such a walloping majority here. It's why Reform took control of 10 councils and actually won 42% of the seats.
But by Thursday, the wheels seemingly came off. Reports surfaced that Youssef had been sidelined with Reform before that evening he quit, posting on X, "I no longer believe working to get a Reform government elected is a good use of my time." Nathaniel Threed followed, citing doubts about Doge's future without Youssef.
Frankly, I'm sad that he's going. I'm sad for the party because he leaves a gap. I think public life has lost somebody very talented and somebody who's come from within the ethnic minorities that is intensely patriotic about this country. That's a loss.
Reform insists it's business as usual.
This is my first post on my newly established X account, and I must admit I wasn't expecting to have to make it about the resignation of our party chairman, Zia Youssef. I'd just like to say thank you, Zia, for everything you've done for Reform, and best of luck in the future.
But with a third of KCC meetings cancelled and critics calling it a clown show, Reform's cost-cutting crusade is off to a rocky start, leaving voters to question, is Doge doomed before it's begun? Bartholomew Hall for KMTV. Well, for more analysis on this, I spoke with local democracy reporter Dan Essen earlier. Hi Dan, thanks for joining us. So for a party priding itself on efficiency, this week's been a bit of a waste of time for Reform, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, by any measure, it's not been particularly successful. So they started the week bringing in their Doge team to Kent County Council, saying that they had this crack team that would come and find efficiencies and save the taxpayers of Kent loads of money. And now by the end of the week, Zia Youssef, chairman of the party, who's sort of spearheading the Doge efforts at all the local authorities they control, has resigned from that post. And Nathaniel Threed, who was brought in, who's a tech entrepreneur who was brought in apparently by Zia Youssef to assist in this endeavour, he's gone as well. So yeah, they've not... It's a week where they could have been finding efficiencies, which they've seemed to have spent fighting amongst themselves.
Well, we did see them identify this £2.8 million of wasted money, but it turns out that information isn't actually as new as they were suggesting.
No, not at all. That was, I believe that was from a report of the County Council last year, which my colleague Simon Finley reported back then. So this it's old news, essentially. Though it's good to see that they're reading the pages of Kent Online, of course.
And can we draw any parallels to what's happening here with Reform UK and the issues that are happening over in America with Elon Musk, who of course inspired the Doge group that we've got here at KCC, obviously falling out with US President Trump?
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly... They occupy similar positions on the political spectrum in that they're sort of right-wing challengers to established parties of the centre-right and centre-left. Even the name Doge is clearly taken from Elon Musk's endeavour. I think the main thing it shows, though, is that both of these both the MAGA movement in America and Reform in the UK, as attempts to be right-wing challengers to the existing parties of the centre, they depend on their support base is a broad coalition of parts of the lower middle class and the working class, who are very disaffected, especially by issues around immigration. But at the level of leadership, they clearly depend on quite an unstable coalition of basically very large personalities from the worlds of right-wing politics and the high levels of sort of tech entrepreneurialism, and those are worlds which, much like politics and high levels of business in general, attract large personalities who don't share the limelight particularly readily. So this kind of infighting, I think, is probably to be expected in any political movement seeking to destabilise an existing establishment. The question is whether or not it will actually affect their popularity, which, unless this is the start of a broader crisis, I don't think it will. People don't vote for reform because they think they're voting for a well-oiled, efficient governing machine which will do everything perfectly. They vote for reform because they want to give a kicking to all the existing political parties.
Well, what is the answer for those voters then who made that change happen at KCC earlier this year? Because for them, it's not looking that good. And what can we expect to happen next?
Well, I think it's definitely too early to tell if this isn't a symbol of the death knell of reform running County Hall. They have a huge majority. They have many years to run it before it's abolished in local government reorganisation. But in terms of what happens next, if reform is serious about this Doge thing and using it to find efficiencies and savings in County Hall, presumably they should be appointing a new people to replace Nathaniel Freed. And hopefully, if they're to do it by next week, they should be back about their business, scrutinising council spending, looking through documents, telling officers to find efficiencies on this or that. Whether that will actually happen in practice, I've no idea. But I personally imagine that the reform or the Doge rather, is more of a political construction. And now that the spearhead of it in Kent is gone, I imagine it will slowly sink into the background and save it. They'll try and find savings in the regular way, like a council usually does, just through its normal budget setting processes.
Well, Dan, we'll have to wait and see exactly what does happen next. Thanks for joining us today. Time for a very quick break now, but we'll have plenty more news made just for Kent after this. Become a Kent Online subscriber for unlimited access to award-winning journalism from across the county. Browse the premium version of our website with no intrusive ads for uninterrupted scrolling on your desktop, mobile or tablet. Enjoy unrivaled coverage of news, sport and leisure in Kent, including content exclusive to subscribers. Read fascinating features in our in-depth section and head down memory lane by delving into our decades archive. Keep up to date with politics in Kent and Westminster and the latest on and off the field with our extensive sports coverage, including specialist Gills reporting. Enjoy weekly digital editions of all KM titles and swipe for the same page-turning experience as the newspaper. Download, share and print out the pages you want and tackle fun puzzles such as crosswords and Sudoku. Plus, unlock our extensive archive of past papers stretching back more than 10 years. Becoming a subscriber is easy. Visit kentonline.co.uk and click the subscribe tab at the top right of the screen. Choose the package that suits you with options to pay monthly or annually. Once you've signed up, check your email for a thank you message from us and details on how to get the most out of our subscription. Kent Online, news you can trust.
Hospital visits will be dramatically reduced.
And there's something about time in Imagining Autism. I call it a nowhere.
I completely adapted to being a hidden away rural homeless person. The system can't and doesn't cope with rural homelessness at all.
And I think that's a big barrier to young disabled people in terms of their aspirations and accessing science.
I think the Eco-Parakeet is a great symbol for what we should be doing on Mauritius, what we can do elsewhere in the world.
This is like a picture of me and my cousins when we was in Albania back to my nan's house.
Mirë, vëmë të keme me menu me menjen tonë edhe me pa momentin e dur që kur me ik edhe policisë.
The Kent Politics Show, live on KMTV. Join us every week with an array of guests.
I think the boundary changes have changed a great deal in Kent.
The Conservative administration have delivered the lowest council tax in Kent. We will continue to do that.
Discussing the things that matter most to you.
People do feel like they've been ignored by this government.
We do need something else to supplement wind and solar.
Catch the Kent Politics Show, only on KMTV.
Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight live on KMT. A mountain lion that arrived in Kent more than 15 years ago has sadly passed away. Victoria was born in Austria back in 2007 and with a twin sister came to the big cat sanctuary near Smarden the following year. Well, sadly, the mountain lion was diagnosed with kidney disease earlier this year, and despite being put on supportive care plan and remaining stable for quite a while, in recent weeks her health has begun to decline. After deteriorating, they said the most compassionate and ethical decision was to let her go peacefully. Keepers say she was deeply loved and will be greatly missed. Now, don't forget, you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across the county by logging on to our website. That's kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all of our reports, including this one about a community pub that was closed for 2.5 years during the pandemic and has been recently recognised with an award after its miraculous return.
After the COVID-19 pandemic, the George Pub in Bethersden had the task of repairing and restoring their grade-listed building for use. And only several years on from reopening their doors, they've managed to win the Campaign for Real Ale's Best Pub in Ashford, Folkestone and Romney Marsh. Pub regulars came down ahead of their beer festival to celebrate the achievement.
Oh, it feels fantastic. The vibe here is wonderful. I come to the George quite a lot. It's an amazing community-run pub. The village have bought the pub. There are so many shareholders of the pub who live here in the village, and everybody in Bethersden really supports what the George is doing and has been trying to do. The food here is fantastic, the drinks here are fantastic, so this recognition from CAMA is just the icing on the cake.
Now the pub's success is made all the better by the fact it's community owned, meaning a committee of local residents are in charge of the pub rather than a company, which they say provides a local touch.
The pub wouldn't be here if the community weren't being here regularly, keeping it afloat. What we as an organisation have tried to do is to work with clubs and organisations within the village, and we're trying to develop that all of the time.
Now, although the village will be celebrating the George's success, plenty of other pubs do struggle, with the total going down year on year. So, what's the solution? Could it be that being a community-owned pub actually helps? Or is there a dark future that lies ahead of us, where we just don't have somewhere to enjoy our pints anymore? If community ownership is the solution, then there's a long way to go. According to Statista, there are more than 45,000 pubs across the UK, but it's only a small minority of them where local people own it as part of a committee. According to the Campaign for Real Ale, there's only 217 of them in the whole country, meaning less than 0.5% of pubs are community-owned. And with the amount of pubs on the decline, officials say current government measures don't do much to help.
Beer is one part of it as far as tax is concerned, but there's so many other considerations to make. You have business rates, you have other taxes, you have utilities, so gas, electric, all of those things, wages. There's so many parts that make making a pub viable, so that you need to look at a lot more things than just taking a penny off of the pint of beer.
Well, since they've won Pub of the Year in Ashford, Folkestone and Romney Marsh, the George will go up against other winners to see if they can take the title for East Kent as well.
Oh, very, very excited. We've got to win it.
Finn McDermott for KMTV in Bethersden.
Now, the Met Office has issued a yellow weather warning across Kent for this weekend. Forecasters have promised heavy showers and thunderstorms throughout the county, with the yellow warning persisting from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. tomorrow, that's on Saturday. Reports have even suggested some areas could expect to see between 30 to 40 millimetres of rain over several hours, mostly falling on that first day of the weekend. Well, the Met Office has encouraged people to get prepared, saying the emergency flood kits and provisions, saying to make sure they have emergency flood kits and provisions in case of power cuts should be prepared in advance. Well, with that in mind, let's take a look at what the full forecast is looking like. Tonight's looking rather calm though, some light rain expected in the south of the county, temperatures around 12 and 13 degrees. Then tomorrow is looking rather miserable with yellow weather warning in place, as I just mentioned, for thunderstorms as we go into the afternoon tomorrow. Much of the same temperatures in that mid-teens range. And here's the outlook as we go towards the start of next week. Things looking to clear by Tuesday, where we'll see highs of 22 degrees. Well, June marks the start of Pride Month, a month taken to celebrate the LGBTQ+ community, and here in Kent, celebrations are already kicking off. Various towns are, of course, throwing their own Pride parades and celebrations, but one coming up, which is usually marked as the biggest of all the celebrations, is, of course, Canterbury Pride. And here to talk all about the event is Jonathan Fitter-Harding. Thank you very much for joining us today, John. It's great to speak with you again. It's always exciting this time of year, although not looking very good in terms of the weather. Will you still be dancing around this weekend?
I know, I just read that, but come rain or shine, Pride is always a fabulous event, so I'm sure we will still have a lovely day. I'm actually looking at the weather at the moment and hoping to see some gaps of the rain in the afternoon, so we still encourage everyone to come down and enjoy what we've got on offer.
It's always a joyous celebration. I've been there myself a few times, and it is free as well for people to go and attend. You've had to make a few adjustments this year. It's not in the usual Dane John Gardens because of some work that's going on. So tell us a bit more about what people can expect.
Yes, so we're not in the we're not in the Dane John Gardens this year. We are in the Westgate Gardens, which is by the Pound, which the tower's at the bottom of the High Street. So this year, whilst we don't have our usual stage, we do have a lot of new things. We've got things that, you can get your tarot read, you can get married, although unofficially, by Delilah and walk away with a lovely marriage certificate. We've got a really cool Pride post office where you can write a card to your future self, and we will send that to you in the future. We've also got some really amazing charities that we work with. So we've got a LGBTQ+ resource area, so people can go and chat with them and see if they can offer any assistance. And obviously for us, one of the biggest parts of Pride is the parade. It's kind of kicks off the event, and that will leave the Westgate Towers at 11 a.m. It will march up the High Street, past the Cathedral, coming down St George's Street and then back into the Westgate Gardens. So that's something for everyone to look out for.
Yeah, of course, that parade, something that's been going on for years in Canterbury, and just goes to show how much it means to the LGBTQ community there.
Yes, exactly. And it is, for us, one of the most important parts. As many of your viewers will know, Pride started as a protest and it continues to be that. So for us, we wanted to make sure that we at least got the parade on. We've got in excess of 2,000 people marching, and they will be there regardless of the weather. So it should still be a spectacular sight.
Always a brilliant spectacle. Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to the most for this weekend?
Do you know what? I'm just looking forward to being in a very different area. We've got two parts of the site. So the first part is in the main Westgate Gardens. Then we've got another part in Toddler's Cove as well. And so Toddler's Cove being more aimed towards the families, where we've got some bouncy castles and other activities for everyone to come and take part. So it's really nice that people will be able to come in, explore the Westgate Gardens, and then lead their way through to Toddler's Cove.
Absolutely, and Westgate Gardens, what a lovely place for it as well, with some brilliant flowers on display there. I'm sure will be lovely no matter what the weather is. Thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck for this weekend.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And finally from us this evening, swimmers have been taking a cold dip at Joss Bay as part of the Taliska's Wild Blue Swim Challenge. And amongst the few that have been braving the waters today is Olympic gold medalist Rebecca Adlington and actor James Norton. Well, the swim is raising funds for a marine charity that's working on coastal restoration here in the UK. And Daisy Page went down to Joss Bay to find out more.
The county's coasts are a vital but fragile ecosystem. They are threatened by pollution and overfishing. But here at Joss Bay today, despite being a little bit windy and wet, people are taking a swim to save our seas. Olympic gold medalist Rebecca Adlington and actor James Norton are amongst the few taking the cold plunge for Taliska's Wild Blue Swim Challenge.
It's one of those that I've always felt a really deep connection to water, and it doesn't matter what water that is. I just love the feeling of swimming and being out just in open space. I just think it's absolutely incredible. And I think we all, if you live near the coast, we all kind of have a bit more of a connection to it because they see it, and the local community here, I think, are really knowledgeable on the marine life, on the sea, whereas actually once you get deeper away into the country, not so many people hear about it and see it firsthand, so it's important to raise that awareness for everybody around the UK.
Starting at 7 a.m. and set to finish at 5 p.m, the 10-hour relay race is in support of the Blue Marine Foundation. The challenge is raising funds for coastal habitat restoration and marks the launch of their new limited edition whisky, which has been released in a 100% recycled glass bottle.
So for every bottle of Talisker the Wild Blue, £3 is donated to the Blue Marine Foundation, and then we also have the swimmers for every collective kilometre swum, a further £150 is being donated to the Blue Marine Foundation. And what's amazing is we're already at a total of over £100,000.
The foundation's goal is to have effective protection for at least 30% of the ocean by 2030. Their recent research shows a global 92% reduction in seagrass meadows and 95% decline in native oyster reefs over the last century.
Huge decline of these keystone habitats. Without these habitats, we can't build that sort of base of an ecosystem. If we continue to lose those habitats at the rate we have been, they'll simply be lost forever. So the active intervention to restore these habitats now really is key. And by restoring them, we not only provide benefits for nature, but also for humans. These habitats provide a huge number of ecosystem services.
Events like this can continue the foundation's work. Daisy Page for KMTV in Joss Bay.
Lovely scenes there over in Joss Bay. That's it from us this evening on Kent Tonight. We'll be back on Monday with plenty more news for Kent. See you then. Bye-bye.